Good evening. I'm board member Rob Rohrbaugh, and this is Global Faith. If you are new to our meetings, we are ambassadors of the gospel of Jesus Christ. We are advocates for the victims of Islam, and we are champions of the United States Constitution. If you're in here in person, if you have a question, raise your hand. When Dr. Mark is ready, he will answer it. If you're online, please submit your question in the Q with the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window. We'd like to open with prayer, and introducing that prayer, I'm going to read a couple lines from Proverbs 28, verses 1 and 2. The wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are as bold as a lion. For the transgressions of a land, many are princes thereof, but by men of understanding and knowledge, the state thereof shall be prolonged. Please join me. And I apologize, I'm going to read the prayer. Dear Father, we thank you for the ability to meet in person and electronically all over the world. We pray for wise and informed leaders to rise up in the spirit of Proverbs 28:2. We pray that we live for you and not ourselves, that we are bold as a lion, becoming or encouraging such godly leaders to rise up. To this end, we pray for strength and guidance tonight for Dr. Mark's words and for our understanding in Jesus' precious name. Amen. I would like you to please rise and follow me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the United flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now I've got to tell you, this gentleman has a lot to pack into tonight's time. We wanted to make sure we gave him the full hour. Please help me welcome Dr. Mark Christian.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for coming tonight and skipping the very nice weather and the sunshine that we have out there. Hopefully we get some spring sometime soon. I really do. I'm praying about that. Okay. So there is lots of things I want to share today, but I want to get started by talking about a couple of things. Number one is, we are living in a very interesting times, and we say that, I don't think even enough. We say it all the time, but it's really interesting times, and it is sad times. But my hope is that you will be encouraged in that God is in control and not us, and things will turn around at his own timing, but we need to do our part, and we do not need to be stressed and depressed and all of that, negative feelings whatsoever. Sometimes I can slide into that as well and not feeling as good as I should, but I always get reminded that the God is in control. He wants us to take action and not just to rely on our own abilities, but rely on Him and His abilities, and His abilities is surpasses any evil that exists in our time today. Okay, with that narrative, I wish we can agree on that. Do you agree on that or not? Amen. So the first thing I want to actually start with as well is a couple of things. Number one is one of the most disturbing thing today in America, and I've been noticing it for quite some time, and even since I came to the United States, is that how much people are ignorant about America, about the history of the United States, about the rights and the system, and what America is all about, and many other things. And maybe, your generation, my generation is not as bad as the younger ones. And especially the younger generation is actually not only ignorant, but they have false information and they have misunderstanding about what America stands for. And I think it is one thing we can do all together to put our efforts in is to get ourselves educated about the world around us and about what's going on in our midst, and also to learn about American history and the rights that we have and our constitution and the laws in America and how the system works and all that kind of stuff, especially American history. People are degrading America because, using the lack of knowledge and the ignorance that we have. Okay. So I think if you really think you can do one thing is get yourself educated and educate people around you with true knowledge. From that, I want to jump in another disclaimer that I am saddened and heartbroken by the amount of conspiracies out there that people keep on talking about it nonstop. Sometimes in the time of despair and the time of people went down, they kind of meddle in all of this kind of stuff, but we need to stop. We really need to stop. I hear the other day, I don't know how to say it nicely, child pornography and molestations and dealing with human bodies and eating younger kids. And Hillary is doing this and the elites are doing all of that stuff, among many other things. We need to stop talking about that stuff. That's crazy and is going to discredit us. And you know what? You have to ask yourself, if they are shutting down anybody who speaks any truth, why they are not shutting the websites that propagate that stuff? And that there is one answer for it, because they are the one who's doing it. Because it is an easy way to push false narrative and lies and to keep people kind of distracted about what the reality is going on. And, we easily can eat that up. We know that they are evil, and we sometimes start looking at the evil, that is the highest level, and then we start kind of consuming this kind of a stuff. And unfortunately, there is people among us and people that I get to know in the past that are meddling lots of conspiracies as well, because of this is the way that they want to do things and get people to listen to them or make an extra buck or whatever. But in reality, this is hurting us, hurting America, hurting our children, hurting everything we stand for, and mostly hurt our faith in Christ, that we should seek the truth and we should not propagate in the truth. So we need to be educated, but we need to be educated in the truth, not just to continue meddling in conspiracy and so forth. And, many of you know what I'm talking about. Many of you don't. That's good that you don't. But, if for those who are meddling into the conspiracies, enough of it. Well, there is lots of bad stuff happening out there that we don't need all of those conspiracies. And nobody's eating babies in America. Nobody's eating kids in America. There is no child chain of pornography going out in the basement of the White House and all of that crazy stuff whatsoever. I don't want to repeat them, and you know who you are and stuff. And even talking about Bill Gates and what he's doing and this and that. It's just, you need to stop all of that. I really truly believe that is needed to be stopped. And actually that reminds me a lot with one of the disasters that we live in today. When I came to America in 2005, it was like 3.5 years after 9/11. And when I arrived, I was coming with a mission. I want to know Jesus. I want to be a Christian. I want to get baptized. And I know a lot about politics then, and I continue to do, but I didn't want to even meddle into it. But then I started hearing a whole bunch of stuff about Islam that was wrong. And people would ask me because they know I'm coming from Islam and I'm all of that stuff. And I figured out there is lots of conspiracies and wrong narrative that propagated after 9/11. And, you know, people maybe took it lightly at that time, but, you know, I tell you the truth. The problems that we are facing today, the narrative of Islamophobia, the narrative of the Muslim Brotherhood is being propagated the way it is, Council of American Islamic Relationship strength is all based on the false narrative that we propagated at that time. Because every conspiracy led to discrediting people and then only give the strength and the power to the enemy. So we should learn from that lesson. If you know what I'm saying is, or you grab what I'm saying, right after 9/11, if I'm going to sum up what I said, maybe I was not clear enough. Right after 9/11, there is lots of wrong information that was pushed about Islam, Islamist movement, Islamic narrative, what Muslims believe and what not. And many of this information was true, but a lot of it was wrong. People who took advantage of the situation and tried to make a buck for themselves, or trying to push a narrative or to make something of themselves that they are not, and all of that stuff. The enemy have used all of the false information, the false personnel, the false, claims and all of that stuff to discredit everybody, even who is saying the truth. And it gives them strength over the people who are propagating the truth. And the end result is the strongest Islamic movement in America and the strongest Muslim Brotherhood in America, and the narrative of Islamophobia have been propagated. Is that clear? Did that make sense? So I think, what happened in the past happened in the past. It is time for today to learn from the mistakes of the past and try to stick to the truth and the truth alone. Make sense? Okay. So, and I'm all about actually education, and I like action as well. And but action cannot be taken without being educated, without learning the truth and learning where we at in many things. And, when I look back at my life, I find it like God has a lot of favor in my life, really, with the ups and downs in my life and so forth. The way I was brought up and grow up in a country like Egypt, I look back at it today and it is very, very interesting, actually, in multiple ways. And it's not only that I learned about Islam growing up and not only becoming an imam at a young age and learning the Quran and be very, very well versed in Islam. And then when I turned my life to Christ, I became more effective and I understand what we are talking about when we're dealing with the topic of Islam. I also grew up in a country that actually many of you don't know this, but what was modeled after American politics in every aspect of it. Many people don't know that, but in reality is in 1952, Egypt has a coup that was helped by the CIA at that time to remove the monarchy out of Egypt, and also to kick the British out and have independence in Egypt. And very quickly, then the Egypt start modeling and using the political system of America, from the two chambers to the presidency to the ministers, every part of America, American politics, not the exact constitution, but very similar to it, inspiration, the Supreme Court, everything has been inspired, the current, political system in Egypt. But here is the thing that is very interesting. They used it in a very corrupt way that did not push it to be the example of America, to be the beacon of freedom and we the people and stuff like that. Even though I grew up, in the civic studies in Egypt, the government in Egypt is supposed to be from the people, to the people, and all the stuff that is part of our constitution, United States. But I have seen how that system has implemented in Egypt in a very corrupt way that pushed for a dictatorship instead of having the real spirit of the American system. Why is that important? Because today, when I see what the government of the United States is doing and the elites of the government is doing, Biden and Obama and Hillary and Pelosi and Schumer and all of the people that is in control today of the country, they are actually trying to drag the United States system, using it in a way that is very corrupt, similar to the way that Egypt implemented that system before. So it's not like I am trying to predict what they are trying to do. I have lived what they are trying to do. That's a very interesting thing for me, right? And that reminded me with a story when I first came to the United States as well in 2005. Like I said, I was coming over here just to seek Christ, to know more about Jesus, an opportunity I'd never had or I will never have in any other country other than the United States. And when I even tried that in England and Europe, I was not successful whatsoever. And the United States was the only safe haven that I was able to do that in 2005. It is astonishing and sad how the country have changed, how the country changed from the church, from the political system, from everything have changed big time. I think if I was coming to the United States today, I would never be the man I am today. I would never know Christ the way I am today. I would never have this opportunity that I had in 2005. And this is why we need to do whatever it takes. And I'm trying to do whatever it takes to make sure that America will stop the insanity that is going on and maybe go back to where it was, at least to 2005. I'm not going to go to the founding father, at least 2005, when America was a safe haven for people like me who are seeking freedom and truth and seeking Christianity and Jesus Christ and so forth. Okay. So when I first came in 2005, and, you know, I was working at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. And at that time, you know, the first month, or maybe 3 weeks, most of the Muslims within the, you know, the ranks, whether at Creighton or at UNMC, were, you know, trying to be nice to me, trying to reach out, you know, an Egyptian Muslim guy by name Mohammed coming in as a physician from Egypt with a very well-known family. They know my last name and all that kind of stuff. They think, you know what, let's build friendship, you know, and do stuff. And they try to invite me a couple of times. I rejected because I have a secret and a discreet plan. So I want to be nice. I don't want to steal any pots, but just want to like distance myself and be nice as much as I can. Okay. Very quickly, without me actually noticing anything, you know, all of a sudden this Muslim community get to know about my real intention of going to church and seeking Christ and trying to do what I was trying really to do. And then they start harassing me, try to do many things to me and threatening my life and many, many things that it's not time for, you know, but it's horrific things. And I didn't know my rights whatsoever. I didn't know how to respond to that. I was scared because I thought, you know, I'm just coming out of Egypt. I lived in Europe for some time. I know what can happen to me. So, you know, over here, I thought it's going to be the same thing. And the boldness of the Muslim community at that time, from a very well-educated Muslims who are working physicians and researchers and others, you know, scared me, scared my family. I didn't know what to do. Okay. 2 months later, I was sitting with a representative from the FBI and a representative from the CIA to discuss my situation, discuss the stress I'm receiving and so forth. And we talked for, I think like it was full day. Yeah, actually, you know, interview. It was very, very long. Part of the discussion, I'm bringing this for that reason only, okay? They start, I think the guy from the CIA start asking me, why didn't you go to the police? Why didn't you go to report all of that? Did you report to the police? And I said, no. And I was laughing at the very beginning. I would not go to the police. You know, I don't trust the police. And he looked at me like, why would not trust the police? Because, well, I started to explain to him, my experience with the police, it is actually the force of the government. And the force of the government is basically looking for the interest of the government, not looking for the interest of the people. They would not look to protect me. Well, you know, the least they can do, I thought in my mind, I told him, you know, they will see that this guy coming in, creating some problems, they will deport me. They will send me back to Egypt and I will be in big problems. So, because the police is doing the government bidding. And he had to explain to me, no, the police does not do that over here. Well, I have a set of beliefs of an experience for years, what the police looks like, right? And it was very hard for me to fathom that actually the police is doing policing, doing investigating crimes, protecting people, doing the things that the police should do, not to just to make sure that the president is good, the government is in a good shape, to go after people if they did anything wrong, to put people in jail for no reason because they are a threat to the government. This is the kind of idea of police I have, okay? Why I'm actually mentioning that story? Because when you see what's happening today with George Floyd and the funding the police and other things that's going on, that brought that story into life to me. That interview never left my mind ever. It was very vivid till today, and it will always be, because it was a shock and actually a little bit tense, because the guy was thinking that I am not telling him the truth or something, or I felt that way, and I tried to defend my point and my belief and my understanding. But when I see today George Floyd and what he's doing, and actually that takes me back to an event that I had in Texas, and maybe 6 years ago, and I started saying it seems like Obama at that time was trying to make a federalized policing in the United States of America, will change the police from the way I actually learned after that the police is my friends, that they are my protection, they are my shield, they are the shield of the community, they are not doing the bidding for the government. So I was so happy with that, and I was afraid to lose that one more time. So when I had this meeting in Texas, I talked about, Obama is trying to do this, but now it is coming to really some kind of a fruition in a bad way. Okay. What I saw with George Floyd, and as soon as the verdict was announced for Derek Chauvin, immediately the Department of Justice launched a probe into the Department of, the police, in Minnesota or Minneapolis, to figure out to pave the way for federalizing the police. Well, that is a very dangerous path. This is somebody that I lived this experience to the fullest, and I'm telling you, tyranny is not something to take lightly. Tyranny is not something in books. Tyranny can happen overnight. I have seen it in my home country, read about it in my home country. Now in my adopted country, I will fight every day for that will never happen, if it is going to be my last breath. And I wish you will do the same. So what we can do about that, I think we should start working locally to understand that the idea about George Floyd death and the trial and all of that stuff, as much as make us crazy, we need to look at their goal and their aim and what they're trying to do. And federalizing the police is a horrific thing that can happen in this country. It is not a simple thing. It's not take it lightly. It's not like, okay, they're going to educate them about how doing things. Very quickly, that force that will take its orders, its training, its money, its funding, all from the federal government, they're going to be slaves for that, who is giving them their orders and their training and everything else, and they will never be for the people again. And we can say goodbye to America. And this is a very dangerous thing to do. Okay. So, and this is something I lived. I can give you stories upon stories. And, I'm going to tell you something. I was actually of some prominence in Egypt. So the police was at least over there, even though it was tyrannic, but I was part of the tyranny. So I didn't have worry about speeding whatsoever, for example. I would drive 120 miles, literally, I'm not kidding you. And the police stops me. All what I need to get my ID or get a card, and I get my license. I never get a ticket. I never paid for a ticket in Egypt. So this is something I benefit from, not something that I'm telling you, but I have seen others have been crushed. And later on, when I start being on the wrong side of my family and my others, now the police became against me. And when I have an attempt on my life, the police was not there to protect me. There was nothing to protect me. Okay. So I benefit from tickets and speedings and, making a U-turn in a place that I don't have to do it, or get some kind of favors here and there. But when it's time that my own father is trying to kill me, there was nobody to protect me. That makes sense. Right? So this is something that we have to take very, very serious. Okay. Don't be upset. Everything's good. I'm good. Okay. So the second thing is, there's lots of things happening in the world today that I really would love all of you to be aware of. They are trying to distract us a big time in the media, talking about nonsense nonstop. But the reality is things are heating up across the globe, and we need to be educated about that. We need to learn about what's going on. We need to learn about what's happening in the Middle East. We need to learn about China. We need to learn about what's happening in Russia and what is Biden administration. And, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think Biden is in control of anything, even his dog. Okay. So he has no control of anything whatsoever. He is a figurehead. He agreed to be that. This is why he's the lowest of human beings, in my opinion. And I do not have any respect for him or what he believes in, what he's doing whatsoever. This is a guy who decided to be a figurehead for the greatest nation ever. And I don't care if he has Alzheimer's or he has dementia or not. This guy is the lowest of human beings, in my opinion. Okay. And he is letting others, and I think Obama is a big one of those, and I talked about that before, to run him and run the country the way they are. And they are doing horrific things. They really do horrific things. And if we actually think that what we are going through is bad, you know, in my opinion, we did not see half of it yet. And I'm sorry for being dark and gloomy. This is when we have to come to realization what's going on. Because one of the things, actually, for example, yesterday, you know, many of you know the, Southern Poverty Law Center, right? Have you heard about that organization? Southern Poverty Law Center? Southern Poverty Law Center. Have you ever heard about it? It's a very vicious organization that is started as a good organization, I believe. I don't know. Somebody told me that. But right now, it is actually the policing of anything Christian, anything conservative, anything. They are the masters of cancel culture. They started cancel culture before cancel culture even was a thing. They are the ones who point fingers at anybody who talks about, pro-life and call him a hater, or somebody is talking about, the homosexual agenda and stuff like that, and labeling them a racist and a hater and white supremacy and Islamophobe and all of the things, the labeling that happens. It actually, Mike Pompeo, that I admire a lot for his stance and stuff, is on the list because he's a horrible man. He's a white supremacist and Islamophobe and all the list. Okay. This is the, Secretary of State of the United States of America is on their list. Okay. So it's a horrible organization. This is like you make it on the list and they make lists for everybody and a horrible thing. Okay. Here is the bad thing. Yesterday, the Senate approved the deputy of the Department of Justice, the what do you call the head of the Department of Justice, the Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General. Okay, the deputy. Sorry, sometimes I miss words. The Deputy of Attorney General was approved yesterday, and she is the first woman of color, they say, from a background from India. But she is a vicious woman who has been supportive, working for and working in to advance Southern Poverty Law Center. That Southern Poverty Law Center puts a big statement out there to say, this is an unbelievable success for the center, because right now we have somebody, to depend on in the highest office in policing or law enforcement in the country. So she is the deputy. Her last name is Gupta, and she is going to be and actually, by the way, one of the Republicans, Murkowski, voted her yes as well. That's very sad, to be honest with you. You have no idea the ramification of that and what kind of vicious organization is this. And one of the things actually I talked about, and I'm going to remind you again, we have a Domestic Violence Act that is in the making in Congress, and our Congressman, Don Bacon, adopted that and part of the co-sponsor of it, which is a very sad thing. And part of the bill is to name the Southern Poverty Law Center, among other Islamic organizations, to be the source for the government to investigate people across the line in the United States. So the Southern Poverty Law Center, to get this kind of a high level office, is a very sad thing. Do you have any questions, or do you understand what I'm talking about, or am I confusing you? Anything confusing? Go ahead. Well, I talked about that before, but I'm continuing trying to talk to him, and we're gonna be meeting sometime soon again. There is an act. It's called Domestic Violence Act, that was sponsored by lots of Democrats, including Jerry Nadler and others. And then Don Bacon co-sponsored the bill. And in the bill, it says that anybody who is doing anything that can be deemed, as a source or an instigating domestic violence, and they're using January 6th as an incident that kind of backing that, then they're going to be investigated by an office that they're going to form within the 4 branches of government, Department of Justice, Homeland Security, CIA, and, another couple of organizations. And they are putting Southern Poverty Law Center as a source for those offices. So it's a horrible, horrible bill altogether. It is infringe on our rights and investigating Americans without even FISA and all any of that stuff. It's just the Southern Poverty Law Center can say, you know, Mark is a bad guy because he talked about them and said, you know, the deputy of the attorney general is a bad woman. Then they can name me, and then all of a sudden, all of the government, you know, dogs is investigating me and ripping me for all my rights and so forth, just because of that bill. And you know, Don Bacon is co-sponsoring that. That's very sad. It's among other things. Okay, go ahead.
Don Bacon was the only Republican co-sponsoring that bill.
Yes.
It allowed the left to say this is a bipartisan bill.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a very sad thing, actually, to be honest with you, and we'll see what we can do. See, I don't know actually what to do, to be honest with you. That's why I don't know what the meeting is going to be about, but we'll try. Vicky's going to, you know, volunteer to go with me. So, you know, when she goes in, she can get things done. You know, you see the food today, we have to give her a hand because, you know, better food today because of lobbying for that. So thank you. Go ahead. Yeah, about Chris Baker. Care, Councilman. Yes. Yes. Yes, 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 I do. What he's talking about, and for the people. Yes, re-education. And this goes back to the very beginning when I said we need to be educated. You know, you don't need to depend on social media or anything like that. We need to learn about our history from the sources. And, you know, what I do to learn about things is I seek different resources until I come to the truth and the facts of what is going on. I don't depend on one source. Everybody asks me, so where can I go to get the information or the history? Well, go to everything you want to. If you find something wacko and crazy, read it. You know, if you find it wacko and then you read something else that was nice and good, and you know, I think all of us Americans are smart people. Okay, and we can come to the truth and try to read everything with an open heart and open mind, and then reach the truth. Ask God, what is it that we need to learn? So I really would love people to start doing this. Don't let anything brainwash you. I actually, again, one of the things, I grew up with brainwashing. History and even geography was brainwashed when I was a kid, okay? Education in a tyrannic government is a brainwashing, is not education whatsoever. I grew up believing things that was far from true. And I didn't know. I'm a kid. You know, what do you tell me about history? Oh, did this, that, America is a horrible country, did this and that, or this is what the Soviets are doing, and then flipping it later on. What would I know? I'm a kid. I don't know. I'm going to read and study what you're telling me. I grew up and I started learning things, and I said, you know what? I'm going to actually check everything I learned since I was a kid, because I don't know what's right and what's wrong. And this is when you start finding the truth. This is how I find the truth about Islam. This is how I found the truth about Muhammad. This is how I found about about Egypt, socialism, communism, you name it. This is how I found about America, and I fell in love with America after learning about the real truth about this country. So you learn the truth and try to dig for it. I think it's worth it, okay? Worth it for you and for this country and for your kids and grandkids. If one thing you can do, maybe this is one thing you know is going to be very effective. Make sense? Okay? So jumping into a different topic over here, maybe a little bit of good news over here, a little bit, okay? So in the Middle East, you know, things are heating up a little bit, to say the least. A couple of good news is this, you know, because of Trump and Mike Pompeo and, you know, Trump, son-in-law and Netanyahu and so forth, there is a strong relationship is building between Muslim countries and Israel today. That is something that will never, ever happen without Trump being in office in the last 4 years, and in the previous, you know, 4 years when he was in office. That's the fact. That is the truth of it. But, you know, when I came to the United States again, you know, 15 years ago, and even 5 years ago, when I even think that, you know, there is Muslim countries with the level of Saudi Arabia or United Arab Emirates, one of the most wealthy countries in the Middle East and maybe in the world, or Bahrain and so forth. Those are very wealthy, very strong Islamic countries, and they have a strong relationship and exchange of, diplomacy between them and Israel, and visiting and airplanes flying between those two countries. Back in the day, if a plane of Israel flew on airspace, they will be shot down. Even commercial airlines for Israel has to go around because they cannot fly over any of those countries. Today, they are visiting each other. That's amazing, don't you think? The other thing is not only that. We just a few days ago we had remembrance of the Holocaust. And for the first time, I think, in history, it's not I think, it is the first time in history, two Muslim countries had ceremonies to remember the Holocaust. Okay. I grew up with idea that the Holocaust never existed. To find Muslim countries in the highest official government of those countries, like Bahrain and Emirates, remembering and actually in solidarity with Israel and the Jews, having ceremonies to remember the Holocaust and the danger of the Holocaust, and teaching the people within their community and in their country and it in the newspapers. That's unbelievable, to be honest with you. That's something I never imagined would happen. Okay. Not only that, here is the very ironic thing. Well, as you know, Biden is a very interesting guy. Like I said, he's a figurehead, but who's behind him? Obama. And many people actually in the Middle East is not, they forget, like many of our politicians thinks, they can say whatever they say, and then in 4 years, everybody will forget and vote them in again. Well, in the Middle East, they do not forget what happened to them, especially when it's bloodshed. Obama created enormous amount of bloodshed and disturbance in the Middle East. Do you know that? Obama did. Do you know? Arab Spring, he created lots of problems in the Middle East. People don't forget about that whatsoever. And they know that Biden is an extension of Obama. And they are afraid of the United States and the current administration, Saudi Arabia and Qatar and what I would say, actually, maybe Qatar not. So UAE and Saudi Arabia and Egypt and all of those countries are fearful of Biden and his administration and what they're going to do in the Middle East. And they are preparing themselves. So what they are doing? They are seeking the protection of Israel. So Israel protect them from anything the United States can do to them. Well, let this think for a second. You are talking about Muslim countries not only hating Israel, but actually depending on Israel for their own protection. Isn't that crazy? I don't know if understand how crazy that is from somebody coming from there. That is kind of like, I'm talking about conspiracy and eating kids. I think eating kids is more believable than that for me when I was a kid, right? So this was unbelievable kind of, what are you talking about? That's not going to ever happen. It is happening today. It's real. Okay. And why? Because they know the relationship between Obama and Biden and what they are trying to do with Iran and the threat of the nuclear weapons and all that kind of stuff. So they're afraid of all of that stuff and what's going to happen. And even more, Biden tomorrow is going to want to announce that Turkey is involved in the mass killing in the beginning of the century. He wants to destroy the United States, the Saudi Arabia current king and his crown prince, and he's going to blame them for 9/11, which is things that can be true, but he wants to bring it up today. You know why? Because he want to destroy those countries. All of a sudden, Biden and Obama learned about 9/11 and figured out that Saudis are involved. You know why? Because the Saudis today are opening up their society. Women are, enlisted in the police and the army. Women can drive. They have parties and they have music and they have cafes. Obviously, this kind of a new Saudi Arabia is not very nice for the current administration. They want to bring Saudi Arabia to the country that it was during 9/11, so they can do another 9/11 over here, guys. I don't know what they are trying to do. So today, Saudi Arabia and all those countries, aware of all the dangers that is lurking to them from the current administration, and they're seeking the help and the protection of Israel, which is something that is unbelievable. Another thing is Israel as well is under attack because of all of that, right? And Israel knows very well that the Iranian deal is not to stop the Iranians from having nuclear weapons. So they took matters in their own hands 2 weeks ago. And I don't know if you know about all of this or not, but I'm going to share with you a couple of events that took place, and so you can be aware, okay? So Israel decided to take matters in their own hands and decided, we're going to go and find out. Obviously, Israel has all the information that they needed, and they were able to launch an attack inside of Iran at their nuclear facilities. and dismantled some of their capabilities. And some says that they were able to create a damage that will halt the Iranian enrichment of uranium and Iranian chemical nuclear weapon abilities for up to 2 years from what they did into Iran. And that was a discrete operation that was orchestrated by some spies inside of Iran and lots of intelligence from, not from the United States, I can tell you that, but intelligence from the Israelis themselves. Well, you know, it was trying to cover it up. The Iranians did not try to be embarrassing themselves, but very quickly, everybody knew about it. So the Iranians decided, you know what, we're going to retaliate against Israel. So they launched a missile onto one of the boats of Israel that belongs to Israel, has the flag in the Arab, you know, in the Gulf. Well, and Israel decided to say, I'm the big man. You hit my boat. I was able to protect it. You know, I dismantled your nuclear weapon abilities. So the boat is not, I'm not going to retaliate. I'm not going to escalate. I'm going to just let it go. Well, the Iranians did not sit still. They decided to yesterday launch an attack on Israel nuclear facilities as well. That was about to create a disaster in the Middle East. From Syria, the Iranians launched a missile attack on the nuclear facility in Dimona, which is one of the biggest reactors of in Israel. And the missile landed, like they say, 30 miles or 20 miles away from the reactor. And the thing is, the missile was not supposed to reach that depth in Israel whatsoever. So there was lots of failures in the air defense system and the dome that the United States helped to protect Israel. And there is a big investigation inside of Israel today, started immediately as this took place. So they are trying to figure out how a missile that is Iranian made, launched by Iranian militia inside of Syria, was able to escape all the air defense missile system and was able to launch that close, and it was about to create a disaster. Well, Israel as well launched this investigation, but immediately retaliated and demolished the whole militia group and all the missile batteries that is launched that from. So all of that happened yesterday. Are you aware of that? Okay, that is escalating things to the highest level between Iran and Israel, if you can imagine. And we are talking about baloney stuff over here. You know, this is what we are doing because they are distracting us, because this is what they want to do. We can stay in the not knowing anything going on, and they are doing their own agenda and so forth. And then when we talk about, you know, they are creating havoc in the Middle East, we don't know anything about it. Okay, so any questions so far about what I'm talking about? Do you have any questions online or? Sorry, I'm dumping a whole bunch of information, but there is lots going on. I'm actually trying to pick and choose from the things that's happening.
Well, I don't know if you want to go there already, but there was a question from John who really wonders if you think we're going to get out from underneath the tyranny of COVID, and whether it, you know, basically if it's impacting what's going on generally.
I'm going to tell you something from my own experience as well. It goes without understanding. Tyrants don't have the tendency to leave by themselves. You know, people has to make the choice and says, you know what, I'm not letting fear or tyranny take control of me. So if anybody's waiting for Fauci all of a sudden to say everything is good and green and you don't have to wear double mask or 3 masks anymore and you're good to go, then you are living in a la la land, and I'm not. Okay, so it is our choice to make the best choice for ourselves, to talk to our doctors, to talk to whoever, and to find out how we can be treated if we got the COVID or the virus. If you want to take a vaccine or not, you make your own choices to figure out, you know, you weight the goods and the bads and make the choice, and let's move on with our life. You know what, who did that? Florida did, and they are doing good. You know, when I met DeSantis in March, he's an amazing man. He decided, you know what, I'm not going to live under tyranny. And this is kind of the way it happens. Tyrants do not have the tendency to live on their own. I can tell you that, okay? They just don't, okay? They just have to be forced out, or somebody tell them, you know what, enough of it, enough is enough, get out of here, okay? So, any more questions? Okay, any questions over here? Okay, I'm going to ask you actually a question over here right now is what do you think about the racial divide in America? What is the main reason for that? Yeah, what is the racial to divide us, right? The divide, that's a good point. So is the divide a goal in its own, or there's something more vicious behind that? Go ahead.
I just sincerely believe that there is something more vicious behind it, but I think part of the problem is education.
Yes.
I'm not guilty of the systemic racism that the city council and Douglas County Board tells me I am.
Sounds
The
good.
professors,
for you.
the professors from Creighton and UNO tell me I'm still guilty. You're guilty.
Yeah.
This is exactly what Marxism and totalitarians do.
That's a good point. So actually, I'm gonna take it and try anybody take a shot on that. Why socialism would create something like that? Why communist system would try to do a racial divide in America? Is to destroy America? What is it their goal? Destroy America? Okay. Any other answers? Control. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of very close. I'm gonna tell you. Go ahead.
Try to get us to destroy ourselves if we fall for that.
Okay.
If we fall for that, if they're trying to tell our kids in the colleges that we are racist, that all of their white relatives are racists.
Yes.
Her first comment was they're trying to get us to destroy ourselves.
Yeah, yes, that sounds like a good point. Have you ever actually studied how socialism was able to be implemented in any society before? Anybody have studied that? Anybody have read about how Venezuela became socialist? It's not like a one person came in and all of a sudden they decided, I guess, there is something paved the way, right? Have you ever heard about how it works or not? Have you ever studied about even the Soviet Union, how it was formed and so forth? We have an answer over here.
It's class warfare, but they're replacing class with race now.
That's amazing. You should come and speak. I always trust somebody who's bold. This is, when you lose that hair, you know that you're there, right? Sounds good. So the class warfare, okay? In every society, I'm gonna fill in this. In every society, when there is a community or a country or whatsoever, they usually they pin one part of the society against each other, so they create that divide. But in every society outside of the United States, because the United States is different, I'm going to tell you why it's different. It was easy to pin people because of their economical status. So was usually the manifestos in every country. It is turning the bourgeoisie or the bourgeoisie against the common man. And even the bourgeoisie, by its definition, it is the middle class. Because in any other country, the middle class is kind of rich and all the elites, but then the common man is poor. Okay, so they turn those two against each other. Well, the communism is mainly like we are going to divide the country or divide the society, and we pin one part after another, and we're going to feel somebody is guilty and the other part is not. The rich is guilty, the poor is not. The poor wants to divide and divide the wealth among everybody, right? Well, it's a simple thing. If you have anything and want to divide it, don't you know that you need a divider, somebody that be able to divide that stuff or not? Well, in your home, if you have kids and you have big pizza, you're not going to leave it for the kids to decide who's going to take it and who's not. Somebody who's like, the mother or the father, somebody, come in and says, we're going to cut it this way. If you have 6 or 8 kids and we're going to cut it everyone so nobody takes more than they should, right? Or you can say, you know what, Mark, you're fat. I'm not going to give you 2 pieces. I'm going to give you 1 piece. I'm going to give this other one piece. And you know what? I'm going to keep 4 pieces for tomorrow, right? Because I'm going to be the one who's deciding who's going to take, what he's going to take, and when he's going to take it, and what I'm going to keep in my own closet as a bargaining chip for the future. Is that the way it works? Right? So for any kind of communist society, of any society to be able to be dividing the wealth, you have to somebody that is controlled. That is usually a dictator or an oligarchy of group of people that is going to be having the key to the wealth in their hand. They're going to confiscate it from everybody and they're going to divide it to everybody. This is how dictators come in. So socialism and communism, even though they sound nice and sound very amazing for the younger people who thinks, you know what, everybody needs healthcare, everybody needs to have free college, everybody has to do that stuff. Even in that kind of vicious idea, it is not a mean in its own. It's actually just a way. It's not an aim on its own. It's actually just a mean to reach dictatorship. And that's what socialism means. Okay, in a very simple terms and simple understanding of what's going on, right? What is different about the United States of America? I think many of you over here, or you can testify about your family or somebody else outside, you know, in America, it is very easy to jump from one class to another. The middle class over here is just, you know, a point that you can reach. Some people are unfortunate. Some people are not able to move, but the majority of American, we have stories everywhere. We have actually, you know, Zuckerberg, you know, he, in 2007, few $1,000s in his pocket. Today, he is the second most rich man in the world. Okay, so which part he's going to fit? And then another thing is actually that you should ask yourself, if dividing the wealth is what's exactly what they want to do, how come the most rich among us in America is supporting socialism? You know, how come somebody like Bezos, who is the richest man, he's actually willing to give his money to everybody so can divide it? You know what? He can open Amazon today and make everything for free on it, and we can buy whatever we want to. I'm going to get a very nice TV tomorrow for free, but he's not doing that. Why most of the rich in America is supporting the socialism and communism and all the agendas going on? Because they want to be part of the elites. They don't want to be part of the one that is going to, maybe they will lose some money, but on the long run, they will get more power like any oligarchy and dictatorship. So what is different about America is this. We can move over here from one class to another. So it is very difficult and very hard to divide our society according to money, because we can jump from one place to another easily, and everybody can see that easily. The easiest way to do it is by racial divide. And they will come in across as the social justice ambassadors and enforcers, and the one that will say, here is how it works and so forth. So instead of dividing and keeping the pieces of pizza in their closet and so forth, they're going to have the key to social justice. The cure of social justice is going to be in the hand of the oligarchy, right? So instead of dividing America according to wealth, they are dividing America according to racial divide. And that is paving the way for a dictatorship and so forth. So why I'm saying all of this, because you need to understand, I need to study other societies. You need to study Venezuela. You need even to study Russia. You need to study any country that moved from a country that is free market into a socialist country. Study Egypt, for example, okay? This is a country, again, I grew up in. It was a very well-to-do country, an amazing economy. There was great democracy, hospitals amazing, and everything is amazing. Now look at it, is in the tanks in every aspect of life. Okay, and it did not take long for the country to go to that direction, because when you have dictator, you have oligarchy, they keep the stuff for themselves, keep the power. And here is the thing, again, it goes back to dictators. As soon as dictators get the power and the federal policing and the propaganda machine in the media, there is no way out of this without a bloody revolution. And I don't think even any bloody revolution have succeeded so far to take away socialism and communism from any country. The Soviet Union started losing socialism because, you know, America was pushing on it, and Reagan and so forth. Socialism and communism is a plague that if it comes into a country, it will be plagued by the tyranny and dictatorship that is very hard to get rid of. That makes sense? Okay, so now you understand why there is racial divide in America? It's sad, it's bad, but I don't want you to feel guilty. You need to stop making you feel guilty. That feels in the same hand of Chris Baker the other day, okay? Yeah, he put a crazy picture. I didn't like it. He thinks it's funny. I don't think so. I had a phone call with him right after that took place and so forth, and he was very sad and depressed. And actually, I made him laugh a little bit, and I told him, you need to, you trust in God or not. The same things actually I said earlier today. Maybe that was inspiring to it, that we need to trust in God, and whatever happens, happens. And, if you trust in God, God will make everything for good. And you know what the future looks like. I didn't like his excuses that he put out. He needs to take it as a man. And if he did something, a mistake, he just say, I did a mistake. I don't think he's a racist. He likes me, so he's not a racist whatsoever. Right. And I am on his show all the time. So he's not a racist guy whatsoever. I know that very well. Okay. He sometimes thinks he's the most funny guy person ever. I don't agree with that. I think I'm more funny than him, but you know, it is what it is, right? He is in a bad place right now. But who is actually talking about that? Council of American Islamic Relationship and Muslim organizations and the Tri-Faith is trying to tell him, make you a better man. Well, you know, I think CARE should not talk about that whatsoever. They are a horrible organization and so forth. So you can see that the Islamist and the socialist and the communist and the dictatorship and the oligarchy and all of those who don't want to see America succeed and to be America that it was and want to change America to be a different country, all hands in hands, every time, everywhere they work with each other immediately as soon as they see an opportunity. Okay, this is how they do it. So we need to learn that very well. And you have to understand, you know, I'm not providing solutions as much. Today is kind of understanding what's going on so you can be more educated about what's going on, if that makes sense. Okay, we still have a few minutes and we need to talk about China, which is a big deal. Have any more questions? Are you guys okay? What you said? You have Jesus, you should not be. You live in America, you should not be, okay? I'm not. You know, a whole bunch of stuff I read that is very depressing, but you know, I'm not depressed and I'm not sad, just believing that God is in control, okay? Amen to that? Okay. And this is how it's supposed to be. Go ahead.
Yeah, relatives even, that you can't be poor if you're white and have the same, it's like you have so many better opportunities than a black person, which I found was not true because I couldn't get the same scholarships that a minority
you
could
can't.
get.
Yes, I can tell you that. Yeah.
You know, there's lots of things like that, but over and over, it's always, it doesn't matter what struggles you overcame, they can never be as much as a person of color.
But see, they are succeeding by trying to make sense of everything going on. But if you understand that what they're trying to do has nothing to do with making sense, it's trying to be rational. You're trying to say, how come they say that stuff? Well, you know why? Because they don't care about rationale and realities. They have one narrative that they want to do, which is want to divide this country so they can emerge as a dictators and oligarchy and elites of this country. And they don't care about rationale whatsoever. One other thing is actually that is the same is global warming. I think it's a big mistake when we continue debating global warming exists or not, actually. What I think is we need to go after them about their solution that they're providing for global warming. I'm not going to debate with them global warming exists or not whatsoever. I'm going to ask them, okay, global warming is happening, you know, whether I agree or not, tell me what is your solution? Your solution that we are going to stop cows from existence and taxing everybody in America for it? You know, today in the morning, they have the summit where the Chinese and Biden and others were putting their 2 cents, and Saudi Arabia talking about planting 1,000 or 1 million, tree in the desert so they can do stuff. They try to make Biden happy. The reality is they want to tax everybody over here and in Europe, enormous amount of taxes, so they can eliminate using gas and using our abilities and try to have more of government sponsored jobs. You know, something that nobody ever, I wish any politician will answer them sometimes. Obama would come and says, you know, we're going to invest in very well doing, paying jobs in green stuff, right? Who's going to pay for those jobs? They are very, very well paid, yes, but they are taxpayers' money. They are subsidized job by the government. So you're basically going to have more government jobs. They are not well-paying jobs. You're going to be actually using our tax money to pay jobs that does not exist or has no value whatsoever. This is what they are trying to do. Well, if solar panels and solar energy is efficient, it will sell itself. We don't need subsidies. We don't need anything. If I find that I'm going to have a car that is reliable, that is runs with gas, with electricity, I'm going to buy it. Nobody actually advertised for gas cars before, right? Cars were nice. You bought it. Nobody tried to subsidize your Mercedes or your Toyota. You know, it's a nice car, reliable car, I'll buy it. So actually, because the substitute that they are providing is not sellable, they are trying to tax everybody in America. So here is the way, what I'm trying to say. Global warming is one of other things. It is not rational. It is basically trying to tax everybody. And I don't think we can tax ourselves to any limit whatsoever where we can be all of a sudden the temperature will go down and the whales will be happy in the ocean. You know, they're not. The whales is not going to be happy because you are taxed 80%. They're not. I can tell you that. And then so we let us ask them more questions about, instead of them asking us questions about global warming and to try to defend our point if it exists or not. And I think the ocean is okay. And my apartment in Miami is the same place like, you know, it has been 10 years ago. Let's forget about this stuff. Tell me what is your solution? You know, it doesn't seem make sense, buddy, because it is all taxes and it's not going to do anything, if that makes sense, right? So don't go into the money trail of what trying to make you guilty or trying to make a rationale of things that's going on. Am I done? I still have 3 minutes. Huh? Can I? Okay. I want to talk about China. Can you get me the picture over here? I'm going to talk about China in 3 minutes. That's kind of crazy. You have a picture? Well, I think maybe we can talk about China next time. Do you have, you have it? Okay. In 2013, China started an initiative that while we are talking about all of that stuff over here, this is what the Chinese are doing. You have the picture. Can I turn this around? Can I put this over here? Maybe. 2013, the Chinese started an initiative. It's called Belt and Road Initiative. And I tried to explain what that is and what they're trying to do, but they are building a coalition of 70 countries, and they are spending $900 billion a year in the infrastructure of those countries so they can build a superpower, economical superpower in the world. This, to get today, this kind of initiative involves 60% of world population is under this kind of initiative. 35% of world economy is funneled through that system. Their hope is to establish a major power that will kind of be able to do their manufacturing work, have the energy that is needed from those countries, and also the market that they want to do. I want to explain more and more about that. Maybe next I will. Do you think it's better, Vicky? So what do you guys think? Okay, sounds good. Let's take a small break to talk about the online and now get back.
All right. Thank you, all of you online and here, for attending this. We are at the end of our regular. If you'd like to stick around and ask some more questions and hear about China, you're more than welcome to do that. But until the next time, our May meeting is of course, the fourth Thursday. The May meeting is on the 27th. Once again, it'll be 11:30 at the Pizza Ranch in Lincoln and at 5:30 in the Garden Cafe in Omaha. And for those of you online, we will start telecasting at 6:00 p.m. Central Time. So how to keep up to date between now and then, go to globalfaith.org. On Facebook, it is facebook.com/globalfaith.org. And on Twitter, it's @theapostate1. And we encourage you to go online, keep up to date, send us questions. And please, if you feel led to, send us a donation. You can do that at globalfaith.org. And we will say the final blessings until we hang on. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and give you peace. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Once again, if you want to stick around, Dr. Mark for the after show.
Anybody wants to leave, you can leave if you want to. But I just want to explain very quickly, and I will talk about that in more details next month, okay? Because the China initiative or the China problem is a serious problem that is threatening the United States. And there is lots of work is done by the current administration with the Chinese in a way. And I'm going to tell you that. I'm going to give you a very quick example. You know, this initiative started in 2013 by the Chinese. And they are building like really an empire based not about, you know, invasion or taking other countries, but by investment and controlling of financials and so forth. When Trump came into office, he he actually made a stop to that by sanctions to Iran and other things. And also he started building a coalition to kind of stop that from happening. And for the first time, it was slowed down and it was not functioning at the way the Chinese wanted during the last 2 years of Trump administration. The minute Biden took office, we talked a lot about the executive orders that he's making. One of the things, it was not an executive order, but he ended the efforts by the United States to stop the Chinese from propagating and being successful in this, and stop the coalition that America was building to be a, like opposition for that whatsoever. I think Trump was wrong and his administration by not talking about it quite often and about what he's trying to do, but it is what it is, and you can look it up and see what he's doing. This is why I'm saying the current administration is in cahoots with this to help the Chinese to succeed. To sum it up very quickly, for anybody who has a business, manufacturing business, what do you need to have a manufacturing business? Number one is you need raw materials, right? So you can be able to use that raw materials in manufacturing, right? The second thing is you need, hands to work and get this done, right? To what do you call that? The labor, yeah, cheap labor, right? What is the third thing you need? You need energy, right? And then you need a market to sell that stuff, and you need transportation to be able to move that stuff across. Is that right? Okay. The Chinese said, well, we're going to go invest in the countries that are struggling so we can put enough money and enough, infrastructure so we can own the resources or own the market and be able to do whatever we want to do. They started by building enormous amount of projects and infrastructure investment in Africa so they can control the raw materials. And then later on, they start working with countries like Saudi Arabia. This is the map. Okay? And they are working in lots of areas. I was going to put it on the screen over here, but I will do that more in next time. Okay. They are controlling they involved many countries in Asia, many countries in Eastern Europe, Italy, Spain, and many other countries as well in Europe. They are controlling the Suez Canal. They invested, Suez Canal is an old one, as you know, in Egypt. They start investing enormous amount of money in a struggling economy in Egypt so they can own the Egyptians and the Suez Canal, and they start buying and they expanding the canal in areas and so forth so they can have the monopoly on the Suez Canal and the path from the Mediterranean to the ocean all the way to the Pacific and so forth, okay? Or the Atlantic, sorry. So they are trying to fulfill all the 4 or 5 needs and energy. They invested, they just signed a treaty with Iran for $400 to $600 billion into the Iranians' oil and gas industry and infrastructure. Too much for global warming, don't you think? Right? And at the same time, the Chinese president today said, yes, we are all in for, doing all what we can to minimize carbon emission. And they just invested $600 billion in Iranian production. You know why? Because he's so happy that Biden will tax us and they will benefit from it. Nobody's going to tax the Chinese for it. They don't have, they say they don't have money anyway. And who's going to, keep an eye on them? They don't have, they're not going to send the IRS over there. They're going to send the IRS to get us over here, right? So the Chinese are investing in money so they can have the control over the resource of the oil and gas industry in Iran and so forth. This is a serious issue. Their goal is to spend $900 billion plus every year in all the countries participant, and they are the number one in the world today that they're giving mutual loans to governments and countries in secrecy without notifying the world kind of economists and economy whatsoever. Even the World Bank does not know about those. And it is done by secret. It's not a secret information. It is all over, they just need to learn about that. And their mission is by 2045, they will actually accomplish the highest level of this mission. They have independence from a market to sell, from oil and gas to use, from raw materials they need to be independent completely. And they are thinking and not thinking, part of it is to have their own currency as well. And the idea of currency away from the dollar or the yen, it is not. They are trying to use the new electronic kind of currencies that they're going to use for that. It's a very dangerous to American sovereignty and American future, and American economy in multiple ways. I need to talk about it a little bit more, but I don't want to waste your time. I will take a couple of questions, and then I will promise you next time I will give you more details about it. Okay, go ahead. From the United States. Well, this is what I want to explain how the Chinese, the China started from nothing. And in less than 50 years, they reached this kind of high accomplishment. Vicky was just telling me 15 years ago, she went to China and there is poverty. And then today there is top economy and so forth. They have lifted themselves up. And there is some stuff that we need to study and how America played a role. And another thing I want you to, I had a TV show that I talked about in details, and maybe I will send you the link about it, is the relationship between China and the Islamic movement. You know, you had to ask yourself this question when I'm going to close with it. You know, the United States continue talking about the Uyghur Muslims in China and how they are persecuted, right? Have you ever asked yourself why care that they went after Chris Baker and why the Islamists are not going after the Chinese for persecuting the Muslims in their own country? Huh? Duh. So there is a reason for that. It's not because they love each other, but they work for each other and work with each other. It's a very interesting relationship. You should ask yourself why the United States is the biggest one advocating for the Uyghur Muslims and the Muslims in the rest of the world are not advocating for them. Usually that's not the case. When one Muslim is kind of persecuted in Detroit or anywhere else, it's going to be hell break loose, right? But obviously Muslims are in concentration camps in China and the Muslims are silent about it. That's a very interesting observation, don't you think? So I had a full TV show about that the other day, and I'm going to talk about that and more, how the Chinese came from nothing to be this kind of ambitious to take over the whole world by their economic supremacy. Thank you very much. We'll see you next month.